morning, everybody. It's Friday, March 22nd, and this is the AgYield War Room. I'm Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area. We'll be sure to get to it during the show. Overnight markets here at May corn down 3/4 at 440. May soybeans were down 10 3/4 at 1201 1/4. And May Chicago wheat was down 1.5 pennies at 545 1/4. This morning, the USDA announced an export sales announcement to Mexico, 263,000 total corn, with 173,000 being for 23 and the balance for 24. Good morning, guys. Nothing else really in terms of fresh news. We were obviously lower in the soybean complex overnight. We got a nice corn sale here this morning. Jace, you mentioned it's nice to see that Mexico, has been, in for corn. They've been on a record pace or close to it. So at least, in some bright signs, I guess, for corn, especially if they continue to buy and move into new crop.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers. I saw a chart of just obviously a record pace, but even for this time, I mean, they're a record for the whole year already. So typically they'll buy corn the whole season, our whole old crop season, until harvest of next year. So yeah, it's great to see. I mean, it's kind of, cheap corn prices. It's almost like a domestic demand, really, when you think about Mexico versus, shipping corn overseas. So fundamentally, it makes sense. Cheap corn and our closest kind of importer buying at a record pace.
Yeah, definitely.
But also we're seeing exports to all sorts of competitors that or all sorts of areas that you would see Brazilian corn typically go to, like Colombia. We're seeing Central America, all sorts of areas. So I think we're pretty competitive there. And, Brazil would obviously quickly go to those countries if they were competitive. So corn demand's been, week after week after week. Exports have been higher than expected, or export inspections at least. So corn's actually, been kind of quietly pretty supportive the last, I'd say, at least 2 months, on export demand. So
getting to a valued level then, by all accounts, right? I mean,
I think so. And you probably had buyers with their hands in their pockets. Kind of everyone's talked about the story of farmers being undersold, and I think everyone kind of waited to see how cheap corn could get, and now you're just kind of getting to the point where farmers have sold. They're getting ready to get back in the field, so maybe buyers are getting a little nervous just to get some coverage here, going in the growing season before the report too, see what acres are.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and I get a lot of questions fielded too on basis, because in the East, producers are typically used to seeing basis appreciation after harvest, and it's really not been great, been pretty flat for a while. And, looking to that April-May timeframe, I think the commercial here is ready to fill that gap in. So I would be somewhat reluctant to think that you're going to see a lot better basis. And I think that if we rally, it probably gets maybe significantly softer. When I say significantly, 5 to 10, there's plenty of corn here to move still. So I think being focused on that nickel on basis this year is going to make you crazy with not a lot of return for it either way.
Yeah, it's probably timing too, right, Ben? I mean, if you need corn now, during planting, let's say, right, you could see some good basis pops just because logistically farmers can't get the corn to you.
Yep.
But to your point, there's going to be a time where when they can move corn if they have a futures price rally, it can get pretty weak, right? Yeah, so I think it's just kind of like timing.
Well, it is timing, but I also think that the commercial, which in the East at least, I don't have the same familiarity with the Western Corn Belt. They become seasonal facilities as this ethanol expansion has gone crazy. On-farm storage has increased. And I think that the commercials are looking at that as their opportunity to start unloading a lot of inventory, as opposed to waiting to June, July, when the grower looks around if a good crop starts to materialize and they have to purge the bins. So, I kind of think that sitting on it for that outside of a real weather issue is, is you're probably maybe going to punch yourself in the face by waiting.
No,
Yeah, also, I would like to add on, just with the basis in Northeast Iowa, the ethanol plants are really trying to push basis. They're up to like 10 to 20 cent pushes already. Try to get, bushels into them. Usually there's 2 million, bushels in bags there, and there's none right now. So I'm seeing, really good pushes over there. So if anyone is in that area or is looking for something, just give us a call in here and we'll take care of it for you.
Yeah.
Right, that's GPC, like Cedar Rapids area, right?
Yeah, I'm hearing it like Poet, Fairbanks, Homeland Energy, Lawler, giving some really sizable pushes right now to try to incorporate some bushels coming their way before they get busy in the fields.
Yeah, I think it's great that we have that kind of coverage where people are talking in different places, and the difference of the real massive abundance that we have in the East versus, maybe not the same sort of abundance that they're used to in the West.
Right.
One of the commercials that we talked to told us, and I think this is probably common knowledge, but he dug through the numbers, and I think he said there were 66 million additional bushels in Ohio this year versus the previous year. And that's coming off a pretty good crop. So,
Yeah.
And you got guys should, looking at the system that has rolled through, probably tapered a little bit of that early field work that we were talking about here. So if guys are able to, move some grain, and get that wrapped up before they really start, probably in the next, 2-3 weeks, you're going to continue to hear more and more guys trying to get after it. The calendar's turning quick.
Yeah, and those areas are pretty dry, so I think that moisture will get absorbed instantly into the ground. So they kind of needed it. So
Yep.
it's probably viewed as a bearish thing to start for sure. Any kind of moisture in the West, those dry areas. So
Yeah, I was looking actually the, USDA puts out their weekly monitor, the drought monitor, and it, it's got like 34% of the corn belt, 30% of the beans. But it hasn't really been fluctuating. You know what I mean? That number it hasn't really increased. It's, if anything, corn's dropped a little bit with some of these last couple systems that have run through. So something to keep an eye on.
yeah, it's super dry, obviously, kind of a drought going on in the Midwest, but I think we've learned it's all about timely rains. And if we get them or not, hate to say that, but it's kind of pointless to look at some of these, these deficits versus normal. It's all about when you get the rains, and as we proved last year.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, right, right.
Okay.
In a dry spring, right, you get the crop in quickly, so you got a uniform stands, and then you encourage the crops to grow deep roots, right? So, dry seen as friendly production for a while, especially if still the mentality is we're in a bear market, right? We saw this in a lot of years that ended up being a drought year. Dryness was discounted, right, until it got to the point in time, to Justin's point, where it mattered, right? That timely. Yeah. Now I think right. I think it makes it worse, right? If you don't have the subsoil moisture and then you don't get timely rain, then it's like a compounding issue. Right now, now you basically burn the crop up. Right, we saw that in 2012. Right, and you can clip the crop market, or excuse me, you can clip the corn market or the bean market if you have the subsoil moisture. We've seen that in years too, right? You have really good subsoil moisture, then they don't get the rain at that time, and then you you do clip yield as well. So
yeah, almost like I think too much rain's more bullish than not enough rain anymore. Because you get drowned out spots, you get replant, you get all sorts of issues, at least in the high states.
Well, and speaking for the Eastern Corn Belt last year, that hit it right on the head. We typically will struggle with a wet spring, and it was a perfect planting. Stands were phenomenal, and it made a big difference in the end.
Yeah,
it sure does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
That's very good. Yeah, we're talking to guys down in Kentucky. They're starting to put beans in the ground. So, and probably, I got to see what they got for, I don't think any rain went through, but if they didn't, I know they were getting ready to go pretty good.
Yeah, it's been slow. It's been behind pace though, right? Kind of down in the Delta area, down in the southern states.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
we've heard
got
a couple
Arkansas.
anecdotal reports.
Yeah, but I'm nothing crazy. Not that it's a big deal, but
Yeah, definitely. Ryland, 2:00 cattle on feed today. I noticed we had some, looks like cash traded in the kind of upper 190s yesterday.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a new record high for cash
Wow.
by the end of this week. Looks like 2 to 3 higher. I mean, the high side was 190 on the live. We were up to like 306 in Nebraska for dressed. So I mean, like we're talking 2 to 4 higher, and the board is just sitting here right now. So it just seems like the basis just kind of wants to hang in a more normal kind of way here. But yeah, all eyes are going to be on cattle on feed today. Once again, on feed inventory is expected at 101, placements are expected at 106, and marketing's at 104. So that's just kind of, I think we're trying to price in what these bigger numbers mean. And like, even though there's a lot of concern that the supply is on feed supply is going to stay over last year, it just seems like, the beef market's probably not going to stop anytime soon. We're just kind of coming into this seasonal environment where demand really ramps up, weather gets better. So we're just, it seems like that's the kind of equilibrium we're finding right now. And we really haven't broken down or broken out yet. And I think it's just making everybody a little bit more on the antsy side, just from a producer standpoint. So, I mean, there's plenty of great opportunities. We've sucked a lot of volatility out of the market just in the sideways kind of range. So, protection is fairly cheap here on the board, I would say, just from what we were looking at just a couple weeks ago. So if it's necessary, if you're trying to kind of get that revenue floor in place, there's a million ways to skin that cat, but here we are. It just makes a lot of sense to kind of consider that. I think one of the bigger things right now is still going to be the weights. Dressed steer weights were up 3 pounds. Heifers were actually down 3 pounds from the previous week. So that it's a little bit interesting that that's happening, but I think the market's still going to be focused more so on the dressed weights going forward. And beef production actually last week slipped about 8 million pounds. So, with the slaughter kind of staying up in the upper end of the range right now that we've seen and kind of coming back, production should stay pretty firm. And overall, just seems like the board seems stuck, but the cash seems like it doesn't want to go down anytime soon. So protection's paramount, but overall, we're in the sideways chop, and we'll just see if there's any real surprises on the report today.
Are you able to, Ryland, quick question. If you, for whatever reason, if you were to see a pretty bearish report today, can you still get LRPs on before Monday's open?
Yeah. So, I mean, the sales time period starts at 4:00 in the afternoon. You just have to get that wrapped up by 8:25 on Monday. So that's something to be aware of if you have, a contact that you want to get LRPs and it is something really bearish. I mean, it's, there's a volatility factor that the rates may change, if the insurance companies kind of think that, maybe we're going to be limit town or something, that it's not going to be as affordable as one thinks, but it's always good to check those quotes. If we see a, 108 to 110 placement number, the market is already that's in the higher end of the range. We could be seeing some lower futures prices here, and maybe worth it to look and consider something like that right before Monday.
That's good stuff. And as always, guys, if you get any questions or want to run through any of those numbers with Ryland, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know he'll have his afternoon comments here today, and then I'm sure we'll talk about it Monday morning once we see the report.
For sure.
It is Friday, and that means we've got Brian's Fun Fact Friday.
Best time of day.
Best time of the week.
Yeah, hey, a little March Madness fun facts for you, since we all kicked off that last night. The first tournament was 1939 when the Oregon Webfeet, later to be called the Oregon Ducks, defeated the Ohio State Buckeyes. There's only 8 teams in that tournament. With Kentucky losing last night, I don't know if there's any perfect brackets out there, but the odds of a perfect bracket are 1 in 9 quintillion. You're more lucky to win the lottery, the Powerball, and the Mega all in 1 week to get in a perfect bracket. So that's
Wow.
pretty crazy. So
Oh.
I shouldn't be so hard on myself. Baby.
Yeah, right. So
no,
you're saying there's a
exactly.
chance.
I'm still
Yeah.
alive here.
Yeah. And the craziest fact is there's a huge increase in vasectomies going into this tournament. It's a 22% increase, so they can sit on the couch and watch 4 days of straight basketball. So I don't know how many guys. I don't know how many guys crossed their legs when I said that. Yeah, yeah.
We're not sponsored, by the way. That's good stuff, Bri.
That's a great idea. Fun fact. Thanks, Bri.
Way to go, buddy.
Thanks, Bri.
Killing it.
Just came into the open here. You got May corn down a penny and 3/4, 4.39. May soybeans down 14 1/4 now. 11.98 is the last. And May Chicago wheat's down 2 3/4 at 5.44. Every day that the markets are open, we're streaming live on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, 8:15 Central Time. We'll be back with you Monday morning. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Enjoy the tournament, and we'll talk to you then. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.